So welcome to week 3, where we're going to do 4 more remedies and a little bit more case taking and practice cases as well. So I'm just going to share my screen. We've got a few people away tonight, so most of you will be seeing it on a recording. Have a look. So week 3, continuing on with our 20 remedies. So what are we up to? 4, 8, 12. We've done 12 by the end of tonight. So far, we've done aconite, apis, vomica, arcel, belladonna, bryonia, and chamomilla, and rust tops. We were getting there. And the 4 that we're going to do tonight are Coffea, Gelsemium, nux vomica, and Pulsatilla. And you'll see they've sort of got a few similar themes in terms of what you use them for, which is why they've been put together. But this is what we're going to go through tonight. Is homeopathy safe? A little bit more information on acute case taking and how to do that. Observation checklist. I know we went through that last week, but I'm just going to add a couple of things and just give you another one to think about. Then also case taking and what to focus on. And then the 4 remedies we'll go through, and then we'll do some practice cases. So is homeopathy safe? So, anything that can heal can actually harm. So whilst it is safe and non-toxic and you can't poison yourself with it, it can still cause harm that you may have to unravel. So too many doses, if you overdose, you can start proving the remedy. And as you may remember, proving a remedy means bringing out the symptoms that it's supposed to heal. That's how we discovered the remedies, and what they help heal is what they produced in a well person, they could heal in a sick person. So they're done on live people. And they take the remedy over and over and over and over again, saturate themselves with it, and then they start producing all these symptoms. They're logged and recorded, and then they know what to look when someone comes in with those symptoms, that remedy will help, because it's like cures like. So, so you might start proving the remedy. So even though it's supposed to cure you, it can end up proving it. So, for example, Miranda Castro, she's one of our leading homeopaths I actually think she's the States. I don't think she's English. Anyway, she's been around forever. She cites a case of thrush where a woman was told to take nux vomica, TDS, 3 times a day. And after a few days, the symptoms cleared up, but she kept taking it. So usually we would stop. She took it for another month. So thrush then became so bad that she couldn't sleep, was irritable, and she contacted the homeopath who had to antidote. So we have got remedies to antidote and stop their action a bit quicker. Or you can stop it and will peter out. But sometimes we want to, stop it straight away. You don't want to have to deal with it as it wears itself out. But you should be able to, once you've taken a remedy, if it has an adverse reaction, as soon as you stop it, it will spiral out and stop. So you shouldn't get any more. So also a case of collapse in an infant who'd been taking chamomilla 3 times a day since birth for colic. Some people get a bit excited and they think, well, if it's working, and they're so frightened for it to come back that they keep taking it, and in the end they actually prove it or do some more harm. So soon as this was stopped, the muscle tone began to return, so they did start to waste away, which, you know, we do use it for bringing back vitality. But of course, if you overtake it, it's just going to, if you overdo it, it's just going to take away. It's going to give you all the symptoms of that chamomilla does when you overdose on it. So there's also been cases where regular use of arnica before surgery or childbirth have resulted in post-operative hemorrhage, which is what I mentioned when we did the arnica. We covered arnica symptoms and complaints, is that we don't generally recommend it before surgery. And if you take too much of it, it keeps the blood too thin. So medicines obviously can express. So skin conditions which are treated based only on the skin symptoms and not the totality of symptoms of a whole person. Now, this is obviously in chronic. So we're not really talking acute cases here. But in a chronic condition, if they've only focused on what the skin's doing and not considered what the rest of the body's doing, the whole case, then you can cause problems. And if a complaint disappears, you still feel worse, then obviously the medicine's wrong. So it still needs to be used with respect. It is still a medicine. And, you know, I think we need to not forget that. I know with kids, my daughter had a habit of, oops, hang on, Kay, have I muted you?
You muted me. I've
yes, sorry, you can unmute.
I'll raise,
yes, I did.
I'll raise hand, which is probably a better way of doing it. Just mute everybody and you have to raise your hand when you have a question. Good idea. Which means you can then time it as to when you answer the question.
Yep, okay, that sounds good.
Yeah. The question is, talking about, you know, when you were saying when to stop the remedy,
yep.
Taking the example, say the lady had a thrush, do you stop the remedy the minute it starts getting better, or do you wait until it's completely better before you stop?
Usually almost completely better.
So you keep, as it gets less and less, you keep it going.
You do. And then there's a point where this sort of is the point where you can stop it and it should continue. So sometimes you can stop it when you think like it's done enough that you can cope with it and you can feel like it's going to keep going. But if it then comes back, then you would take it again. So you can do it that way.
Thanks.
That's usually the safer way of doing it too.
Great, thanks.
But yeah, my daughter had a habit, I think it was just a wanting to get rid of it quickly. And so as she got older, I would give her a remedy that I felt fitted. And I'd say, you know, take this a few times overnight. Well, I think she'd finish the bottle in the morning. So you didn't need to take that much. So sometimes we then had to deal with a little bit of difficulty, you know, it sort of lasts maybe for another 24 hours of trying to work out, it's like, don't take any more, just let it fizzle itself out. So that was just still new to how it all works. We had to train her as well. So acute case taking. So we're just coming back into, I just really wanted to go through it again so that you would feel comfortable. If I repeat it a few times, you'll get used to how this works. So it's all about individualization. So even though they've got earaches, they've both got, you know, an infected ear or there's something going around, you could still need different remedies. And that's what you've got to be prepared for. And it's just a different way of thinking. It's not a typical Western way of treating. One bug gets treated, you know, with antibiotics always. So, you know, but for us, the bug might be treated with 3 different versions of our antibiotic sort of remedy. So 2 children with an earache. Rachel is hot, whiny, irritable. She screams at the top of her lungs, pulls her mum's hair, demands to be carried. Her mum doesn't know what to do with her, and she demands their toys and then throws them when she's given them. One cheek is hot, one is red. However, the other is pale and cold. She passes greenish motions. Rachel needed chamomilla. I don't know whether you could see that, and went to sleep soon after a few doses. So, and that's the other thing. What can happen is, you're on the right remedy when it puts people to sleep, which sounds a bit odd, but it's like it just calms their whole system, and you're on the right track, and then their body will go into like a hibernating sleep mode to do the repair and the healing. So it's like they can just calmly chip away at healing. Whether they've had fevers, whether they've had skin itches, whether they've had irritability, bowels, diarrhea, everything calms. You always know that when that happens, you're definitely on the right track. Almost you've hit the nail on the head. And so you just keep going with that. Jane is also having an earache and wants to go out in the fresh air. She's weepy and clingy, but she wants to be carried. She's soft, gentle, wants you to cuddle and be near her. She also has greenish discharge, but from the ear. And she needs Pulsatilla. So they're completely different, even though they've both got earaches, even though there's obviously an infection going on. So the wrong medicine, or other medicines known for earaches may not have these results. So it needs to match the symptoms as closely as possible. That's our 3-legged stool, remember. We need a minimum of 3 modalities, symptoms to match, really, to feel like you get a clear picture of which remedy you need. Are there any questions?
Tanya, I have a question. Considering the slides before, so when you said, like, when you're taking a remedy, when the symptoms fully disappear and you stop taking that remedy, and what if that person is actually has like chronic conditions? Like, I don't know whether have you ever experienced this case that it takes remedy, but seems okay, but because it's chronic, so underneath still something on, but that person stops.
Are there 2 microphones on? Because I'm getting a double echo.
Yes, it's a bit weird, Esther. Harder to hear you.
Unless
the volume's up too loud, it might be echoing.
Can you hear me better? Or
yes, that's better now.
That's
okay,
better.
sorry. No, my question is about the previous slide. Say, if a person having a chronic condition and she takes the remedy, it seems. Have you ever encountered that scenario, Tanya, that she takes the remedy, after a while, it seems her symptoms is gone, but because of chronic situation, the underneath the condition is still there.
Yep.
But she stops the remedy, which she shouldn't. Or so in this case, how would you do in this case?
In a chronic case, if the symptoms are still have cleared, but there's still something underneath, I would either consider changing the remedy to look at this other bit that hasn't cleared with that remedy, or leave it a bit and see whether eventually it will just clear itself, like it's done enough to clear that first level, and it may go deeper. If it doesn't go deeper, like if then it starts to look like it's really not shifting, then yes, I would redo the case and I would look for another remedy. Because it can be peeling of an onion, like you've got one layer of symptoms that you've gotten rid of, and then you're going to get the next layer.
And it could be using different remedies too.
Absolutely. One remedy, I mean, it's brilliant when you get them, but it's very rare that you get one remedy that just clears the whole case. It absolutely does happen. It happens more in children because they haven't had as many layers on. But adults, you can, if it's a fairly clear and consistent pattern. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Tanya. I understand now.
Okay, you're welcome. All right. And let me go to the next one. All right, so taking the symptoms. So we're always looking for things that are individualizing symptoms. So individualizing meaning different from what they normally have and different from the typical disease picture. So, you know, a cough, like, you know, I'm just coughing a lot, or it's a cough and it's sore. Well, okay, but how is it sore? Is it a sore on swallowing? Is it sore only when you drink or when you eat? Is it sore on empty swallowing? Or, you know, like we're looking more for the individual symptoms, not just my throat sore, which you will get because people don't think about it anyway. My throat's sore, fix it. Like, doesn't work that way. So, so you need to ask more questions, or you need to observe, because obviously in children who either can't express, or even in animals, you need to use your, you know, Sherlock Holmes skills and observe what's going on. You know, you see their facial expressions, you might see their movement change, mood changes, obviously bowel changes, sweat, no sweat, all these sort of things, shivering. Also, any symptoms that are not common, to that acute illness, which is about, you know, like I said, with the cough. Oh, so things like, so say you've got a cough, but you've also got a tummy ache, something not related to the cough, or a headache, things like that. Often they're really good ones to help you look at between the different medicines to choose from. So I've got an observation checklist that we will go through so that you can just cross off, or just memory jog, you know, memory things to help you go, all right, I need to be looking for this, this, and this, because it can be hard when you're still new at it, and if you're stressed, to go, oh, what should I be looking for? Like it's a big ask. So it takes practice. I assure you, it takes practice, especially if you're stressed about it. So it is a good idea if you have a notebook, and it is a good idea if you have a notebook dedicated to what you responded to, what the child, the animal, the friend responded to, so that you know, and which remedies you've given them, so that you can see which remedy did the best job. And you know for next time that maybe that might end up being a remedy that they seem to need in an acute situation. We'll go into Pulsatilla, but Tamara often needed Pulsatilla. It seemed to be that space that she tended to go in when she was a little girl. And it changed over time, but it was a very common space for her to go to, and it was like the remedy that she needed. Now, yes, it could mean that is her chronic remedy that she needs, but not always. So the observation checklist. This is what we're looking for. You know, you're observing their face, facial expression. Are they anxious, scared, confused, tired, you know, exhausted, that droopiness? What's their skin color looking like? Pale, red, circumscribed, discolored, you know, looking a bit sort of worried or wrinkled, or, you know, furrowed. Their lips, pale lips, cracked lips, red, abrasions, things like that. Obviously, if there's cold sores and things like that. Tongue, you can check their tongue as well. and salivation, or whether they've got a dry mouth, strange odors coming from their mouth, whether they say it or someone else says it. So sometimes they notice it and they're like, I've got strange taste or sensation in my mouth. And other times people go, oh my goodness, they've got really bad breath. So, you know, and it's related to the sickness. Generally, their position of movement, whether they want to move, whether they don't want to move, what position they want to lie in, whether they want to lie on their side, whether they want to lie on the pain or steer away from the pain. These are good things to look at. Their pulse. Now, you're probably not going to look too much at pulse, but if you want to, you can. If you're confident with that, if it's something that you might notice, sometimes you can hold it and just see how it's feeling. I don't use it very often, I must admit, but it is certainly for the nurses out there and people who know what they're doing. It can be a useful tool because the remedies do have those symptoms in them. So it can be just an extra thing. Respiration, obviously, whether they can breathe, whether they're wheezing, shallow breath, a deep breath, whether they can't take a deep breath, or whether it's rapid, gasping for air, feeling like they're suffocating. They're important symptoms. Skin, moist, dry, cool, hot, sensitive to touch, itchy, you know, those sort of things. Is there any eruptions on it? Is there any dots or spots? Things like that. The voice, has it changed at all? Is it weak, or is it husky, or is it deep? You know, some people get a deep voice. Women get a deep, sexy voice when they're sick. Others go, you know, very weak and they can't talk very much. So it just depends. Smell, obviously, this is more their general odor of the body. Some people, I know my daughter used to always be able to tell me when my son was getting sick. She would pick it up in his smell. He smells funny. She used to always tell me, okay, right, I need to be looking for something. I need to be prepared. I'm going to be treating him soon. So that was always very interesting. She used to tell me that's what's going on. So that's hard to obviously tell in yourself, but you will be able to tell it in somebody else. The mind, whether they're irritable, nervous, sad, withdrawn, want to be left alone or want to be cuddled, or wanting more company, being irrational or delirious. My son used to get very irritable. He got sick, still does. And whereas my daughter goes into delirium very quickly in her fevers. So everybody's different in how they react. Any questions there? Yeah. So I'm just really going over some more things. I know I gave you a checklist last week. All right, so taking the case, I also did a bit of this last week. I gave you a little bit more, but I just wanted to go over a few things with you that you're looking for. So you're always looking for the location. Where is it in the body? And the type of pain, the sensation, which we haven't covered before, I don't think. Sensation is what it feels like to the person or to yourself. What is the type of pain? Achy, burning, bruising, prickly, tickling, piercing, throbbing. Yeah. Is there a cramp or discharge as well? So, so from the nose or the mouth or even the stools or the ears, you know, what colour is it then? What consistency is it? Does it have a smell? These are all things you're looking for. And you'll observe them, but you've never thought to note them down or to factor them in when you're choosing a remedy. So I'm just reminding you to look out for these. Modalities, as we know, it's about time, position, weather, things that make it better or worse. Causation is also what triggered the illness. Was it a shock? Was it just getting caught out in the rain? Was it going to a rock concert? what's it? Indulging in at a party. Yeah, getting chilled, stress, rich foods, exhaustion, all of that stuff. And the general symptoms, they're general meaning they apply to the whole body. So they want a certain room temperature. Yeah, they either want the light or they don't want the light on. Noise affects them, or whether they've got food. Certain cravings, sometimes you'll find that they're getting sick and they're craving all this salt, or they're getting sick and they're craving a lot of sugar. It just depends where that person's individual immune system body is how it's trying to fix itself and what it needs. Also things whether they start to lose their appetite, so they have an aversion to food, or they're suddenly, they used to love cheese or whatever and now they hate it, like they can't touch it. Their thirst levels as well, again, we've spoken about that before. They high thirst, low thirst, no thirst, lots of sips or lots of gulps, what type. Obviously their elimination, some people get loose stools when they get sick, other people get constipated. It varies. Their sleep, their mood, are they waking at a certain time of night when they're sick? It also tells us things, as you remember from the times. So acute illness, which I think we've mentioned before, is the deviation from normal health. It's not, if they're normally irritable, usually a grumpy person, you're not going to put that down as a symptom in an acute case because that's no different to what they normally are. It's only if they're irritable when they're sick only, or in this particular case, sickness, bout of sickness. Yeah, so if an irritable person suddenly becomes clingy and weepy, you know you have to put that down. It's like, that's a real change in their normal nature. Right. Any questions there? Oh, okay, we'll keep going. So Pulsatilla, we'll start on the remedies. Pulsatilla is a beautiful plant and it actually grows in quite harsh conditions. It can grow in between rocks. We will get to that. So, but yet it's very delicate. So they're weepy, they're mild, they're yielding. They also their symptoms can change around a lot. So it can be a bit confusing. If you get lots of symptoms that keep moving about, changing, think of Pulsatilla. Thirstless, so they usually have no thirst. Usually find that they lose. If they were normally thirsty, suddenly they're not. Better in the fresh air. They like air. They want the window open, or they want to go outside for some fresh air. Emotionally, they're often weepy and clingy and crying as well. They often want to be carried. They can be irritable and whiny when they're sick, but I find not as irritable, maybe whiny. But that's just that, carrying me, I'm not feeling well, the clinginess, whiny. I don't see it as irritable as thing, even though we've got it as a symptom. It's not an aggressive irritable, it's sort of a whiny irritable. We use it in bedwetting in kids. Obviously, we use it for breastfeeding to either dry up milk or sometimes to help milk. Chickenpox remedy, it is definitely a cold remedy, often an earache and sinuses as well. Cystitis we can use it in, especially if there's that sort of white creamy discharge. Diarrhea, fevers, it's often used in fevers, though again you'd want more symptoms. Usually there's a discharge of a sort. Food poisoning it can be used in as well. Headaches, insomnia, labour pains, and eye inflammation. It's a big eye. It is a big eye remedy. It can have styes. Conjunctivitis is a big one for it as well. And usually there's that discharge of that sticky, bland discharge. So the discharges are bland, they don't burn or anything like that. So Pulsatilla, yeah, it grows in the open fields in Central and Northern Europe. It actually also grows in very difficult areas. So, yeah, usually amongst rocks and that, even though they're sort of hills. It's an acrid taste, burning and blisters on the skin. Yeah, ulcers, eye inflammation. So it can be used for skin ulcers, but again, usually they've got sort of puffy discharge to them. And the eye inflammation usually has a discharge to it as well. So it's not just inflammation, it usually has some sort of creamy discharge or getting stuck in the eyes and stuff. Some sort of congestion. It's made from the fresh plant in flower, turned into a pulp and then left to stand to absorb. So it's weepy. They're always weepy and whiny. Would probably be Pulsatilla. Oh dear. They don't have a thirst. And their symptoms do change. Yeah. It seems to move around. The symptoms move around, not the mental emotional stuff. Just the symptoms seem to change place or go from, the head then to the stomach, things like that. They just move around a bit. Dry mouth and lips, yep. Thirstless, so they don't want to drink anything, obviously. They don't like rich fatty food, even though sometimes they do crave some butter, I think. They also, crave cream and things like that, but when they have it, it doesn't agree with them. So even though they want it, it doesn't agree with them. They're better in the fresh air always. Some movement, even just wandering about. And they don't like getting cold and they hate a stuffy room. Wet weather does affect them. Often they'll have had wet feet. Getting wet feet, if you have a look in your first aid booklet, it will go through at the back on page 100. It goes through the general materia medica of, which is sort of what we're going through here, the symptoms of and modalities for Pulsatilla. And often wind can aggravate them too. So, Pulsatilla, when they say Pulsatilla, the picture of Pulsatilla is large. It's one of our polycrests. I think I may have mentioned that before. Polycrest meaning it fixes an awful lot of things. So, a multitude of things. And often the reason behind that is it has been well proved, as in it's one of our remedies that has been used forever, has been found a lot of things that it can be useful for. But again, there's a core lot of symptoms that are useful. Their mental emotional picture, this dischargey picture, congestion, still things, and that it's bland. The bland discharge, it doesn't burn, it doesn't do any of that. All right, they have a gentle, yielding, mild disposition, and they can be moved to laughter or tears. Usually weepy, tears more than laughter. Highly emotional, can cry at every little thing, clingy, dependent, and can be irritable and whiny when sick. So they're crossing over a little bit into between chronic and sick space, but you can still get chronic people, as in that are clingy, codependent, all of that stuff that goes on. Children want to be carried and cling to their mother's skirt. The behaviour usually elicits sympathy, which is what they want. If they don't get it, they become even worse and whinier than normal. Sensitive love animals can be easily hurt and they can wilt in the sun. Not good with too much heat. So Pulsatilla complaints. Bedwetting is one of them. Breastfeeding, to reduce the milk supply. Common cold. It's very, very much a cold, sinus, eye sort of remedy. Nasal discharge, yellowy green, bland, can be smelly, usually thick or thicker. It's not thin and watery. So yeah, alternating with profuse watering. Yeah, you still need the thickness in there somewhere. So better fresh air, and they do have a lot of taste. That's again that bland feature coming through. Cough can be constant, and even though it's dry and it disturbs the sleep, they can still get a yellow-green mucus even though it's a dry cough. They'll cough up stuff, but it sounds dry, so it's not a rattly cough. It doesn't sound like there's rails in there or anything. It's just dry, but they still cough up stuff. Nausea, retching, obviously after measles. It's one of the measles remedies too. Yeah, measles or chickenpox. Cystitis. I have used it a few times for cystitis as well. Getting cold and wet. Kidneys may feel bruised and sore, and there's a frequency and urgency, but that's the general cystitis symptoms anyway. Yeah. Diarrhea, greenish, yellowy, watery, and a slimy stool. Earache is thick, yellow, green, smelly, discharge. The ear can be red, the external ear, and they can have deafness. That's from all the congestion in the ear. Itching, noises in the ear. And it's one of our conjunctivitis, basically, remedies. It can itch and it can burn, but it's not as strong as some of the other burning remedies. So it's not a strong burning remedy. I'm surprised to put that in there. But anyway, and better with cold and fresh air again. Usually, you know, if kids wake up with sticky eyelids in the morning, you'll always usually go to Pulsatilla. Fever can have heat, but chilliness internally. So even though they're feeling really hot, they feel cold. One side can be hotter than the other, meaning, you know, a cheek, or meaning a body, you know, part. Arms might feel hot only on one side. Food poisoning can be used for that, but again, that's the stomach stuff, that nausea and that retching. Headaches, forehead, one-sided pressing, throbbing, and they often like pressure on it, but they need that fresh air if it's an ongoing symptom. They're better from excitement and ice cream. They usually like it, but they're actually not better for it. It usually makes them sick eventually. Labour pains as well when they're not effectual. So just with the ice cream that I remember at one point my daughter going up to Queensland and visiting family and making herself sick on that plastic cheese, I think it was, you know, that plastic wrap. She fell in love with it and I think she had it all the time, and I don't know if she eats it anymore because I think she made herself sick on it. So that was not a great, but Pulsatilla was, like I said, often where she went in her acutes. So all right, that's Pulsatilla. Hang on, let me go. Oh, let me go back. Is that clear? Yeah. Thumbs up. Any questions on Pulsatilla? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Just when I hear about it, you said a lot of things, symptoms discharge, like whether it's cough or cold or eye inflammation. So one of the signature feature for this remedy is always has discharge. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not a very dry remedy, as in it's got a little bit of dryness in it, but generally there's a discharge of some sort. Even in the cystitis, like they might get a bit of leukorrhea or, you know, thrushy looking symptoms, even if it's not thrush. Yeah. Okay. So Gelsemium. This is another one of our flu-y sort of remedies. This one doesn't really have a lot of discharge in it, except for diarrhea when they're nervous. But it has a lot more of paralysis, trembling, dizziness, drowsiness. There's a heaviness and a weakness to it. Like they can't, you know, like if you're really exhausted, tired, or Gelsemium's like that. Dizziness, drowsiness, dullness, and there's often trembling to it or a shaking of sorts. It's usually anticipatory anxiety. It's got a high level of anxiousness in it. It's usually prior to an event, or it's about something going wrong, always worrying. They might have had an experience, a worrying experience, a shocking experience, or a sudden fright as well. It can be similar to aconite in that sense, but it's more a bad news. And so they end up being anxious whenever they're doing something, or when they're trying to go somewhere or do something. They're worried that something's going to go wrong. Diarrhea, there's often diarrhea with it, you know, that anticipatory anxiety, those people that have to go to the toilet for the runs prior to something. It's a pretty good sign it's Gelsemium. And again, it's a fever. It does have fever in it. The flu remedy, chills, aches, pains, got in it, headaches, very, very big headache remedy. Usually, again, around anxiety. It's usually around anxiousness. Again, it's one of our flu remedies. So, Gelsemium. Yellow jasmine, beautiful smell. Found in the moist woodlands along the coastal areas in United States of America. Gelsemium is poisonous in large doses, like pretty much any of these remedies. Yeah. They can cause paralysis of the motor nerves, which is why the trembling and so symptoms of poisoning as well: sluggishness, double vision, disturbance of balance, drooping eyelids, convulsions, and even death. Yeah. Fevers has been its main thing. It's made from the fresh root. So, belongs to the same family as Nux Vomica and Curare, but I don't think we're not going to do that one. So it's sort of one of the strychnine family. Both are known for spasms and convulsions. So we will do Nux Vomica next. But yeah, it's cramping, convulsions. That's that shakiness and crampy stuff that goes on in the muscles. The trembling. So yeah, it has the same effect on the muscles. Opposite secondary action is that it causes paralysis of the mind and the body. So sometimes, yeah, they can't think. The anxiousness takes over and they just can't function. They become, they almost don't know what to do with themselves. They can't help themselves. Yeah, nervous, worry, all of that stuff, yeah. The mind is sluggish, the whole muscular system is so relaxed and heavy that they can't move. They don't know what to do with themselves. I know I've been in this space when I've been sick. I just didn't know what to do to help myself, and I didn't care. So they sort of don't care. They're so, yeah, they're heavy, weak. But you just, yeah, so if ever you're in that space, you really need someone else to give you the remedy Gelsemium, because you won't be able to give it to yourself. Body feels tired, achy, the weakness is overpowering, and the limbs do feel like they're made of metal. The eyelids are heavy. I think I treated a horse with this as well. They just stupefied there. They were just standing stupefied and just, yeah, a little bit of trembling, but just this complete drowsiness and dullness, and the Gelsemium helped. So, yeah. And I also, just today, actually had a client that I treated with Gelsemium, and it was after this bad news fright, you know, like an unanticipated event that really threw them and just created this sort of sluggishness in the body and this dullness, drowsiness, even a, you know, trembling, but in the chest area and nervousness. So dizziness, drowsiness, dullness, trembling, lack of thirst again. Not a thirsty remedy. Exhaustion, dullness, sluggishness, wants to be alone and quiet. Yeah, they really couldn't care about anybody else. They just want to curl up in their own world. Don't want to be moved, a little bit like bryonia, where they don't like to be moved, not necessarily from the pain, it's just they've got no energy to move. Bryonia has, they don't want to be moved because it's painful. So it's worse from thinking of one's complaints, making any effort to think, which is that whole sluggishness of body and sluggishness of mind. Fear of falling, they do have that downward motion. So I remember using this at one point with a child. Every time I put them to bed to lie them down, it was like hysterical, like just couldn't cope. So so I remember Gelsemium was one of them. Ordeals and losing self-control. Yeah, sometimes they'll want alcohol, they'll crave alcohol just to try and make them feel better, dull the anxiousness that's going on in here as well. And they can urinate a lot out of nervousness again. All right. Anticipatory anxiety, we've mentioned, the big anticipatory anxiety one prior to exams, having to perform, yeah, dental, surgical, if they're really nervous about it. It's a really good one to use. Diarrhea again, usually because of that nervousness or excitement or anxiousness, yeah. Fever, burning heat, shivering, no sweating, but they do shiver and tremble, all of those things. Again, a drowsiness, but a shivering, and alternating with chills as well. And down the back, the spine, they usually say they feel chilly on their spine. The heat can begin in the limbs and move upwards. Now, there's also directions of cure. We talk about directions of cure. It's called Herring's Law, and it's the law of cures. And it does talk about so if the direction of illness goes in the opposite, usually goes in the opposite direction of cure. So when things go from the limbs and move upwards, that means it's going in the wrong direction. Usually things should go downwards and out. So, or from inwards outwards. So things that start on the outside and then go inwards. So that's where we've often spoken about skin conditions like eczema, getting, treated with steroids or whatever, and then it suddenly goes, then you end up with asthma. And that's the wrong direction of cure. We don't want to send it inwards. We want to push it outwards. So actually, when there's things on the skin, that's the safest place in a way for them. So we want to clear them from the skin. We don't want them to go inwards. So it's just a little side note for you about sometimes understanding how the body's presenting tells you whether it's going in the right direction. Is it going in a healing direction or in a suppressing or, getting worse direction? We might cover that. I might even do Herring's Law for you at some point, just so you've got a better understanding now that I've introduced you to it. Headache, exposure to the sun, mental stress, bad news, apprehension. Yeah, it's a band-like sensation around the eyes and forehead. It feels heavy, achy, and is worse for movement. So there's always this heaviness, dullness in this remedy. Again, influenza with lethargy, tiredness, aching of the body. There is a lot of aching in this body, in this flu. It's a very achy whole body remedy. I'm sure you've all had that sort of flu. Limbs, head, eyelids, heavy. Again, heaviness, drowsiness, droopiness. Chills up and down the spine, and the pulse is soft. The onset can be slow. So with aconite, remember, or with belladonna, the onset for that was pretty fast. Things came on really quickly. This one, you're like, oh, you're just feeling like, you know, or you can watch the person sort of going downhill over a few days. Any questions? Gelsemium, rocketing through. Okay. Nux vomica. All right, Nux vomica. It is part of the strychnine family. There is a lot of irritability, a lot of anger, a lot of frustration, easily offended, very sensitive. And it is an overindulgent remedy. It is our Christmas party remedy the day after. Too much alcohol and too much, you know, creamy cakes and all the rest of it. Even lots of high meat. Well, if it's really hard to digest for people, some overindulgence, and they can be chilly. It is a common cold remedy, more stuffiness to it. Constipation, this is a great constipation remedy. You know, sometimes too for the older folk that have probably overdone their scones, jam and cream. And things like that. It's a hangover remedy through and through. One of our biggest hangover remedies. I remember one of the kids' 18th birthday. I think it might have been Aiden's. And yeah, one of the kids there wasn't 18, as it turned out, or not. And the older girls were basically feeding him with ouzo. Memory? Can you imagine? He was not a well boy the next day, so I was giving him Nux vomica and he was sitting outside having that, and it made a huge difference. He was very grateful for that. So yeah, poor kid. A good little liver remedy for that reason. Good for indigestion. It is good for if you've got belching, again, if you've eaten too much and it's causing distress in the stomach. And it is another insomnia remedy as well. Usually, again, it is another one around business. You remember Bryonia had insomnia from overthinking about work. This one could be from overworking, too much, you know, doing too much. Not just thinking about it, but actually doing it. Okay, so large trees, native parts of India, Thailand, China, and Northern Australia. Produces fruit, white pulp, and large seeds, and it's the seeds that contain the strychnine. It's been used to treat worms, mania, rabies, hysteria, rheumatism, gout, another one, and as an antidote to the plague. So thankfully, yeah, well, yeah, that they're talking about in its tincture form. They're saying limited due to its poisonous effects. That's when they're talking about in its tincture again. That whole idea of proving. Small doses, it helps the appetite, aids digestion, and helps urination. Basically detoxing. But large doses can cause loss of appetite, which is really more the things that we're looking at, what it does in excess, because that's what we're usually treating the symptoms of. Lots of sensitivity, depression, anxiety. Does have some muscular trembling, but we normally see it in rigidity, not in the trembling as much. Large doses can cause convulsions and death from asphyxia. Yeah, unable to breathe. Spasms, exaggerated sensitivity. Now with the spasms, it's more like a crampy spasm, not like that trembling spasm of Gelsemium. But they'll tell you that. It's prepared from the seeds, yeah. Heated in a mortar and then triturated. That basically means dissolved in a solution to be able to create a remedy, because the powder is too, it has to be made into like a tincture before we can make it into a remedy. They're irritable, angry, impatient, fault finding, easily offended, hypersensitive to noise, touch, light, odors, everything. They're just grumpy. And they usually have been working too hard and overindulging usually. Because they've been working hard, they can, they feel like it's okay to overindulge. Coffee, alcohol, anything that they can get, make them feel better. Loss of sleep, it is, like I said, an insomnia remedy. Or it can be good for people who have taken too many painkillers or things like that too, where their body's reacting and saying enough's enough. Like I say, it does respond well to the liver. They're chilly, sensitive to cold drafts. So there's an element of sensitivity but irritability in it. Common cold, drippy nose, but stuffed up at night. That's pretty much a typical cold symptoms from nuts on. Their nose runs during the day and then is blocked all night. Discharge can be burning. They like fresh air. They're better after eating. Food is a big thing for them. And they don't like drafts. Constipation. So often they will have desire for a stool, but nothing comes out. So they'll strain, they want to go, but they can't seem to produce a bowel motion. And sometimes when they do, it comes out in little sort of balls. So it's a good one for that sort of where they're pooing balls. The other thing I have found it often, use more in the elderly. For some reason, they seem to give them a lot of laxatives, maybe because it's the lack of movement in terms of actual exercise. So that slows down the bowel for, peristalsis of the bowel. And I remember one of my clients' mother who was in her 90s, I'm pretty sure. She just was having trouble, and so we gave Nux Vomica, did the trick, but she did have to take it every day to make sure she went. So it was very supportive, but obviously it was she was needing help. Hangover again, mentioned the hangover, headaches as well, often though with the nausea. So it is nausea and vomiting, this indigestion, sour, bitter, belching. Can be actually very good. It can also be a morning sickness remedy, where they can't stand the smell or odor of food, which is again that sensitivity. It's a very good, that nausea, feeling like you want to vomit. So it's a good one for that too. There is a fullness and a heaviness in the stomach. Seems to happen worse in the mornings. It can have hemorrhoids too. I don't know if we spoke about that. That's because of all that straining. So that can be an issue, and excess coffee can also be a problem. Coffee and alcohol in particular. Yeah, after mental strain, coffee abuse, alcohol, tobacco, all the vices, quite good. And they, the 3 to 4 a.m. it is a common remedy used for people who tend to wake at that time. It just tells you that their system's not quite functioning as well. Their liver's not as happy as it should be. And then they can't get back to sleep. And then when they do finally get back to sleep, it's time to get up. So that's the frustrations of Nux Vomica, and usually they're very irritable about it. Any questions?
Yeah. When you're treating something that's chronic, like say constipation for an old person, do you just keep them on it until it stops working, or
you sort of keep them off while it's working? So you'd start it, and if it's working, you might do it for a week or 10 days.
Yeah.
And then you just stop it, and it should hopefully just keep going. And then when it starts to come back again, then you might introduce it like every second day, or give a dose every now and then.
Are we talking once a day or several times a day, or when you start?
No, once a day should be enough. The only reason you do it for twice a day with bowels, you wouldn't do it for very long. You could do twice a day for a few days just to see if it gets the bowels up and running, and then I'd pull it back. Once things are working, I reduce.
Oh, do you do 30 Cs for these? Or
Yeah.
200? Yeah.
Yep, no, 30 C is good. 6 even is really good too. So the potencies, 6 is very physical, very physical. It's still got the mental in there, but it's very physical. The other thing with 6s are it's got a little bit more leniency, as if you don't get the exact symptom, if there are not as many symptoms in it, it might still help without causing too many aggravations. But generally, the kits that I do, I start at a 30 because you've got both the mental and the physical in there then. Yeah?
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking I think my cat is an Vomica.
Oh.
He's hypersensitive and he has poos like little rock balls.
Yep, absolutely. Does he get flatulence or bloating?
No. But it's just anyway, we'll work that out later. But yeah,
it can be good too for adjusting to new foods and stuff. So Nux Vomica can be for that, you know, as their body's getting used to different meals and different foods.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if I'm getting a little bit more tuned in, because, as I said, he ended up at the vet yesterday because he hasn't been right. And I've been thinking Nux Vomica for a while for him.
Give it a go.
Just
the animals in water. Do you reckon you could just stick it in his mouth?
I can try.
Sometimes I'll stick it in their cheek, and you know, they don't have to have eaten the whole thing, as long as they've got a little bit of the coating off it. That's all.
Yeah, okay. Because he's off his food now too, which is something he's not.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, be good.
Yeah, Tanya, I have a question. You know, currently my mind is super active. You know, too excited. And I noticed myself has been, you know, since I came back from the weekend, I've been waking up actually between 3 to 4 o'clock every morning, you know, every morning. And I just couldn't go back to sleep. So I saw whether I can give a try on this remedy.
Yeah, absolutely. The other one, so you're not staying awake excited or anything like that, are you? Because the other one we'll look at is Coffea, which we're doing tonight as well. We're doing that next. Wait until after Coffea and just see. But this can be absolutely for liver. That is a specific liver time. Yeah, are you irritable though? You don't get that in there.
Yes, I feel irritable, especially in the chest space. You know, has all this sensation. You know, a bit anxious sometimes. You know, a bit painful. All this, and the mind is quite super active, and I kind of keep waking up at that time in the last few days. Yeah.
Okay. And it can be a good hay fever remedy too, and it is spring and there is a lot of hay fever around, so could be all of that stuff as well. But yeah, all right, well, we'll have a think of this one, and we'll also look at Coffea and see how that fits as well. But I'd compare those two. Okay. So Coffea affects the nervous system. Well, as we've spoken before about, because we know coffee, you know, the other remedies we don't tend to have in our everyday diet, so it's very hard to understand the idea of approving. So, you know, if you were to take too much coffee, what happens? You become on edge, you become, you know, agitated or highly strung, you're acute, your senses are acute, you either become really excited or your heart racing, like you can get all of those palpitations going on. There can be a level of anxiousness in it, but it's more of a fast racing thing. It is good for headaches, insomnia again, and toothaches as well. So it's made from coffee, green coffee, unroasted coffee bean. Down in alcohol for 8 days. It's boiled with water until it's reduced, strained, and mixed with alcohol again. Tradition of taking coffee began in Ethiopia. Whether you know the history of coffee. A shepherd noticed the effects of more alertness and wakefulness in their goats when they were eating the beans and the berries, which I think is fascinating. You know, that's that whole observation thing in process. But yeah, so, and in England, the religious order of the day called it a poison made black that it might bear the devil's colour, and, you know, the usual story. Things are deemed bad if they don't understand it. Medicinally, obviously, enliven the spirits, relieves headaches, prevents sleepiness, though the effects obviously go with frequent use. As your body gets used to them, like anything. Can also antidote morphine poisoning and some snake venoms. I remember, you know, exams, having to pull all-nighters and having a pot of coffee beside me to keep me awake while I finished my assignments and, you know, things I had to hand in. So, yeah. But because I wasn't a regular coffee drinker, it did the trick. And obviously that nervousness, that jitteriness, all of that are general symptoms for it. Overexcited, oversensitive. Again, this has got acute senses, a bit like the Nux Vomica. So this is where, you know, you have to start to differentiate and find those few symptoms to help you decide which remedy to use. Complaints from excitement or joy. So you might have something on the next day or the next night and you just can't sleep. You're so excited about it, a bit like kids at Christmas. Or they've got a fun event on and there's no way they're sleeping. Makes it very difficult for Santa to put anything in their room. You know, if you've got a birthday party, you've got something fun going on the next day, it is very good. It can help you sleep. Yeah, that excitement. Cheerful, exhilarated, excitable, screaming with pain though, okay, and despair. So it's that heightenedness to it. It has got a bit of extremeness in that sense, but you can understand that because if you take too much coffee, you know where you go. Worse with alcohol, touch at night and fresh air. So the symptoms often come on at night. Someone who's become wired and can't calm down. The child has become overstimulated by too many parties or excitement, and they just can't sleep. Or sometimes they'll have headaches as well. Oh yeah, fear in facing the pain, driving to despair. So if you find that, you know, they have a toothache or something, or an earache even, and they are driven to despair even though they seem sort of agitated but wired, yeah, they can't calm themselves. Whereas the Nux Vom has that irritability. This doesn't have the irritability as much. It's more a fearfulness and a despair. Yeah, they don't have the irritability. All right, headaches again from nerves, from excitement, from, you know, things that are going to happen. One-sided, worse than noise, and it's as if a nail is being driven into the brain. Now, these little things, if someone actually says that, you've got a pretty good chance that you've got this remedy. There's not many remedies that say that specifically. Insomnia, again, overexcited, overactive mind, lightly sleeping and waking at every sound from good news. Not because they're frightened. It's not got really that level of anxiousness in it in that sense. Anxiousness around pain, yes, but not anxiousness or fear or of noises or fright. Toothache again, nervousness, pain, shooting, spasmodic, yeah, spasms, you know, a bit like cramping. Better cold and worse heat. So they would want cold drinks, not hot drinks. Okay. Wow. How are we going? Oh, we're rocketing through. Now, I've just really put this here just to remind you about the complaints and the symptoms. I've just left it from last time. It's really just more for you to be able to see the table. And just as a reminder, if you've got a blank one, you got your table that I emailed you? Yep. So you could fill it in, a black and white one. All right, so we're going to do some practice cases. So those 4 remedies: Pulsatilla, Gelsemium, Nux, and Coffea is what we're going to do. So we'll go through is what we've got to choose from. So Lisa has come down with viral illness, came on suddenly with fevers, lethargy, tiredness and aching in the whole body. She can hardly raise herself from the bed. Even her eyelids feel heavy and droopy, and her chills run up and down the spine. Despite a high fever, she's not thirsty.
Is that is a Pulsatilla or?
I would have gone Gelsemium
Yeah.
because of the heaviness.
Yeah. The
achiness.
lethargy.
Lethargy, yeah.
And the chills running up and down the spine is a Gelsemium one as well, as it turns out. But you're right, both Pulsatilla and Gelsemium have no thirst. So the second one, Alan wakes at 3 a.m, wide awake. His mind is full of thoughts. He's nervous, anxious and restless. His nerves feel on edge, making him more aware of every noise, smell and change to the light in the room.
It's a Coffea, yeah?
Yeah. I would do Coffea more than Nux. Yeah.
It's just because he, one of the things is it because he is more aware of all the senses?
Yes. His nerves are on edge. He's that wiredness.
Wiredness, not irritable.
No. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. The anxiousness, there's no irritability there. Be a restless to it as well.
Yeah. Actually, Tanya, I think after you introduced Coffea, I think my situation is more like Coffea because I feel that my emotions can be cheerful, excitable, but also, like, this kind of extremes.
Yeah, I wondered that. Well, you've got both. Have you got the kit?
Yes, I got both, so I can.
So, remember what we would do, you'd do up to 3 doses of one, and you'll know whether that helps or not after 3 doses. And if it doesn't, mind you, you've only got each night, then the next night you might try a different one.
Take it every 15 minutes, or what's your thought?
Usually it's the intensity tells you the timing of it. So if you're just waking at 3 or 4 a.m, I would take a dose. And if you don't go back to sleep in 20 minutes or so, then you could consider taking another dose.
And you only do it when you actually wake up at 3 a.m.
Well, unless you're feeling unless you're feeling wired beforehand.
Yeah.
Before you go to bed, then you could. But I wouldn't unless you wake.
Yeah.
So Pat wakes at 3 a.m. with thoughts of business going around and around in her mind. She's obsessed with work. She has to be first and the best. Her senses are heightened, but every new sound irritates her to the point of snappy remarks. The insomnia came on after a night out of heavy drinking. That one's a little bit obvious.
Nux vomica. Nux vomica?
Yeah. That's a good one. You see that, Esther?
Yes, I do. Yes, because it's working. Are you talking? Yeah, I felt because it's me obsessed with work. Just to be the first and the best. Is that what you mean, Tanya? That's exactly my personality.
Yeah, well, maybe it is you.
And yeah, the only thing is I wouldn't do heavy drinking, but apart from that, it's all very similar to.
Well,
I'm
you've
just
got
thinking,
you've got
talking
two
about
things to try.
my past. Yeah.
Let us know. We'll be interested to hear.
Okay. So I will try the Coffea first.
Experiment.
Yes.
So Mia has had a cold for 7 days. The discharge from the nose is green. It's blocked. She can't smell. She feels worse in a warm room, but she perks up when she goes outside. She wants ice cream and refuses water. And the most striking thing is that she is weepy, whining, and clinging to her mother, which is out of character for her.
Yeah, that's the first one. Yeah.
Pulsatilla.
Which one? What was that, Kate?
Pulsatilla.
Yeah.
Pulsatilla.
Yep, both. The first one, yep, Pulsatilla. Okay. 4 more and you're done. I'll let you go then. So John wakes at 3 a.m. again, this time with nausea after having a very stressful, frustrating day. Oh, you're right.
Yeah, need my glasses to read it though. Yeah.
Despite his hard work, things did not go to plan. He went to bed feeling irritated. He wants to vomit and his body strains to do so, but he just can't. His irritation is so intense that when he knocks over the cup, he picks it up and hurls it across the room, throwing in some abuse for good measure. He feels a little better after having a warm drink.
Yes.
Which one?
Yeah, the Nux Vomica.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
You froze and went away for a minute.
Oh, did I?
Yep.
I know, it did tell me I was unstable. Okay, so Fee has a cold for 5 days before she starts complaining of sore ears. They feel worse at night in the stuffy room, but better outside. Her mood is changeable and she can't make up her mind what she wants, but mostly she wants Mum by her side to give her cuddles. This makes her feel better.
Oh.
Is that Gelsemium or?
Might have gone Pulsatilla.
No, yes, I would do Pulsatilla. Again, they don't like being inside in stuffy rooms. They want fresh air again. And also there's that changeability in Pulsatilla. And there's that whiny weepiness, which is that clinginess. Yeah, can you see that?
Okay, so cleanness is actually a Pulsatilla's.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Clingy, weepy, moody, yeah, wanting company, desiring company and consolation. Have you got your book, this one?
I'm using your
Esther.
sheet.
Oh, yeah, good.
Yes, I have this book. Yes.
Excellent. Yeah, if you go to Pulsatilla in the back there, you'll get it.
Yeah, I think I probably need to read more.
And you've got the Pulsatilla 1K from the Saturday, have you?
So yeah, I've been using the Saturday one because it's more condensed.
Yeah,
so that I can just
Yeah, good. You can go through it.
Only there's missing. We didn't have Coffea on the Saturday one, so.
Oh yeah, that's true.
There's only 14. There's only 14 remedies on the Saturday one.
Yes, that's true. I decided to expand it to include everything in the kit. All right.
Yeah,
so
no, that's fine. It's just
So Alice is 6. She's 6 rather. Not 6. Oh, she's going to be 6. She had been to an all-day party, lots of sweets, loud music, and lots of people. By the time she gets home, she's totally wired. She can't calm down. She's racing around the house, of course, talking in a shrill voice, and she can't settle and won't settle.
Coffea.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can recognise it in ourselves, can't we? Too much coffee. That's the easy one. So Fred is a singer, but he suffers terribly with anticipation anxiety, gets stage fright with trembling, chills, weakness, and has been known to lose his voice. The anxiety is accompanied by tremendous fatigue and sticky perspiration all over the body.
Yeah, that's the Gelsemium.
Gelsemium.
Yeah.
Well, it's the only one left.
That's true.
You should.
Actually,
But which bits did you notice that tells you that it's Gelsemium?
the anticipation anxiety.
Mm-hmm. And
fatigue, the great fatigue,
Yep.
and perspiration.
Mm-hmm. And the trembling as well is
Trembling.
very Gelsemium one too.
Trembling, yeah.
All right, you've done it. Is that it? Look at that, we've done it.
Mm.
All right,
Thank
I'm going
you.
to stop the recording as well.